Good evening, everyone. I hope my voice is audible to you. So, welcome to the another Focus Weekly session dated 3rd February 2025. And today, as you know, that we are going to discuss the topics which are relevant from the environment and geography perspective, both for the prelims as well as mains examination. The topics are taken from the sources as you can see on the screen, the Down to Earth, Mongabe, The Hindu, Indian Express, Yojana Kurukshetra. So we try to cover the important topics which do come in such magazines and newspapers and which are relevant for our examination. The topic list which we are going to discuss is again shown on a screen. So obviously we are going to discuss the topic ocean coordination mechanism, that what do we mean by OCM, is this some project, is this some initiative, is it at national or international level, and what is the main purpose of this. Second, we are going to discuss the ammonia pollution in river Yamuna. As we know that river Yamuna, especially in the Delhi stretch, is one of the most polluted rivers, and within that particular context there are few pollutants which are increasing the toxicity of river Yamuna. In recent news there was the description about ammonia, so we'll discuss about it. Then we shall be discussing the topics in relation to the tiger population, which recently a study has come out which has said that the tiger population in India has rose by 30%, which is actually a good news given the context of wildlife and biodiversity, right? Then we will be talking about rooftop solar plants in India in the context of Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Yojana, and we shall be in the last discussing about the recent things. The budget recently has given a signal that India will further invest and try to boost up its nuclear potential. So in that particular relation we shall be discussing few things related to the nuclear power plant, and we'll discuss this in the context that we'll have a comparative analysis of nuclear power plant vis-a-vis thermal power plant and vis-a-vis hydro plants. Okay, so this is the overview of today's session, and towards the last, as you know, we shall be discussing some of the practice questions. The topics are covered in detail, so that is obviously the factual part is also there and the analytical part is also there, just to cater the demands of prelims as well as the mains. So we'll begin with our first topic. The topic is in relation to the increase in the tiger population of India by 30%. The Hindu newspaper as well as Down to Earth, both of these sources have covered this particular topic. Okay, so this is the context that why we are going to read about it. The overall conclusion of the study is that these tigers have increased their population in protected areas, and especially in those areas where we find less human intervention. So this is very obvious. Okay, this we can also understand this. But another important conclusion with this report has come out is that in those areas where the people are living in close proximity also, there also the population of tigers have increased, which basically signals or concludes two important facts. One, the tiger conservation project, NTCA, the basically the government initiatives, those initiatives are going in right direction. Second important conclusion is that conserving biodiversity and the humans, the existence of humans, so they are not the mutually exclusive concept. It is not like that if you have to conserve the biodiversity, humans have not to be present in any scenario over there. So there is a harmony between the wildlife and the humans, the local population which is living in the forest. Okay, so this is what report is all about. But when it comes to the examination, so first we shall understand that what are the adaptability mechanisms which tiger basically take into account in order to survive in the forest like vegetation. We know that tigers are carnivore species. They occupy the topmost level of food chain. So if they are occupying the topmost level, then obviously the situation should be that there have to be some key aspects, some key traits and characteristics of this big cat which allows you to have such a dominant position when it comes to the forest ecosystem, right? So we shall be discussing that what are the adaptability mechanism of tigers. Okay, so first of all, when we see the body of the tiger, we see that there are some black strips and the body is of relatively orange color. So this orange and black combination, how does this combination helps tiger? Okay, so it says that the orange coat and the black stripes of the tiger helps in breaking the shadows of the tree. So basically it is used as a camouflage mechanism. Okay, so tigers can roam freely into the forest, and the other species cannot see those tigers roaming into the forest because this color combination helps the tigers to hide in the forest. Okay, so basically they can stalk, they can move in the grasslands, they can move in the forest while stalking the other species, and other species would not be completely knowing about the presence of tiger. This orange color is basically absorbed by the sun rays which filter through, so it helps them stalking through the grasslands, right? So this is the role of this particular color pattern of tigers. The second is that they have olfactory gland. Here, if you can see that they are having the olfactory gland, which are also known as Jacobson's organ. Now, how does this help? The Jacobson's organ basically help the tigers to smell. Okay, so it is their sense. With the help of smell, they come to know that whether there is any other tiger in the vicinity or not. So tigers are basically the animals which love solitude. So when you see the basic, in this context, the basic difference between lions and tiger is, you must have seen the lions during documentary, obviously, ऐसे नहीं. So during documentaries, you must have seen the lions move in group, but the tigers move alone. So they love solitude. So that is why their olfactory gland help them to understand, to know that whether there is any tiger in the vicinity or not. Okay, and how do they know? Because with the help of urine, scat, smell, etc. So this is the thing, right? The third aspect is the jaw muscles. Their jaw muscles are very tough, right, which help them to give a relatively dominant position also. So these jaw muscles are attached directly to the top of their skulls, and the bottom jaw can only move up and down, okay, and not from side to side. So this is very important. So when we see the carnivores, so their movement is upside down. Okay, and this upside down movement basically help them to have a good grip over their prey, right? So that is why it is written that this upside down movement enable them to reinforce their tight grip on the animal which is then grasped, right? So their jaw movement is up down, top to bottom. Then their claws are retractable, again very important. Okay, so their claws, these claws are basically retractable, so this helps them to stay sharp and utilizing them only when required. So if, because these claws can retract themselves while moving, while jumping, while running, so they help them basically to have a swift movements. You can understand this. Okay, then they have whiskers. Okay, so these hairs which you can see, these hairs are known as whiskers. They act as an additional important sensory tool again, and they can sense the presence of other animal and their sense motion. Okay, so they vibrate when they have that sense, and with the vibration of these whiskers they come to know, right? Next, a notable gap between their molars and canines. So we are talking about their teeth. So there is a gap between their molars and their canines. This enables it to maintain again a tight grip as it chokes its prey to the death, right? So their prey is basically caught between their molars and canines. The gaps between molar and canines is used to catch the prey and catch it, and it remains stationary over there, and that is how it kills its prey. Fine. And next is long hind legs. Okay, so the hind legs are very long when it comes to tiger. Why? Because, and how this is important, because when the hind legs are very lengthy, they are very long, so they allow the tiger to have a long leap, to have a long jumps. Okay, so that is why you must have seen that when the tigers run and when they catch their prey, so they dive a loop, so they dive a leap, and there is a very long jump. So basically these long hind legs give them a spring effect and their ability to make long leaps, right? And they can jump up to 30 feet when they run. Okay, so these are the adaptability mechanisms. This 30 feet stride in running is very, very large, right? So these are the adaptability mechanisms of tiger which help them to have a relatively dominant position when it comes to forest ecosystem. So I now hope that adaptation is clear. Now we shall be looking some of the key facts also in relation to tiger. So the latest census of tiger we have is of 2022. The 2022 tiger census basically gives you a lot of facts which are important for the examination. For example, here we can see one important thing is that as you are moving from 2006 to 2010, 14, 18 and then 2022, so there is a 4-year gap, right, in the census, right? Second thing is the population of tiger is continuously increasing. So, okay, so this is around 1400 tigers are there in 2006, then 1700, then 2200, 2900, and then 3167. Okay, so there is a steady rise of tiger population in India. This is established by the previous censuses. Fine. Then, in this very relation, again, if we have to see the distribution of tigers in different states and different protected areas, this picture will give you their distribution. Okay. So, for example, if we see that the state-wise comparison in the context of the tiger numbers, so you will see that Madhya Pradesh MP is the leading state, right? MP is the leading state. So there you are having two colors. Okay, so one is reflecting the 2028 figure and one, the darker one, the red one, is reflecting 2022 figure. And you can see that in Madhya Pradesh also the population has increased when we compare the population of 22 with 2018. Similarly in Karnataka it has increased, it has here also, here also, here also. So in all the top 5 states the population has increased in 2022 compared to 2018. This is another important fact. The largest state, the state having largest presence of tiger is Madhya Pradesh. The states with lowest tiger numbers, you can see that in Nagaland and Mizoram you have tigers, you don't have any tigers, so the number is 0. Okay, so Nagaland and Mizoram is the state having lowest tigers. Then if we have to talk about the reserves, tiger reserves, the protected areas, so if we have to see the distribution of tiger in all those reserves, so we can see that Jim Corbett in Uttarakhand houses the largest number of tigers. Okay, so remember Jim Corbett National Park has the largest presence of tigers. The second is Bandipur in Karnataka. Third is Nagarhole in Karnataka. So first 3 protected areas are important for you from the examination perspective, because I know that you cannot memorize all the 8, 9, 10 places in the serial order. So but yes, first 3 should always be remembered. Here the first 3 states are MP, Karnataka and then Uttarakhand. Fine, right? Okay, so now reserves with no tiger so there are few reserves which are not having any tigers. So the name of those reserves are Dampa, Kamlang, Kawal, Satkosia, Sayadris. So these reserves are having no tigers in them. Okay, so these are some of the important facts when it comes to the tigers in India. Fine, let's move ahead. The next topic again is from the prelims section, and the topic is basically about ocean coordination mechanism. So what do we mean by ocean coordination mechanism? The body known as OCM. The context in which this article has come is because the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, IOC, of UNESCO. So first this fact is important, that this particular commission is under UNESCO. Fine. Then has announced memorandum of understanding enabling the creation of the ocean coordination mechanism. So which body has created OCM? This is the body. Under which does it come? It comes under UNESCO. It has created this particular mechanism. What is the objective of this? So from the name also you can guess it is somewhat in relation to the ocean coordination. So basically, from the common sense also we can understand that this basically must be talking about the sustainable development of ocean, and to ensure a better coordination among the countries and to ensure proper governance steps. Okay, so what will be the purpose of this mechanism? The purpose is the sustainable development of ocean. You can also talk about blue economy, conservation of biodiversity, and all those things. Fine. But another important question is, which area does it cover? Does it cover the entire oceans, all the oceans? Does it cover only Indian Ocean, Atlantic, Pacific Ocean? So which is the exact area in which this mechanism will work? So this has to be understood. This is the region in which this mechanism is going to work. Okay, so here you can see there are two areas primarily. The first one is the Caribbean Sea area. We know that Caribbean Sea lies between the Gulf of Mexico and this portion, that the northern tip of South America. Okay, so this is basically the South America, and towards the north you have North America connected by Central America. So here you have Caribbean Sea. Fine. Second is the North Brazilian Shelf. Okay, so the continental shelf which is lying towards the border of this area, that is the northern part of Brazil. So North Brazilian Shelf and the Caribbean Sea, these two areas are covered by this particular mechanism. Now, why this area is important? First of all, this area is lying under the tropical climate. Okay, so you are having the lower latitudes. If we understand that it area is lying at tropical climate, lower latitude, so that means the temperature is very high, humidity is also high. So if temperature and humidity are higher, so these are the favorable conditions in order to have a larger biodiversity. So that means this area is also rich in biodiversity, right? When it comes to biodiversity, the most important aspect of the biodiversity of this particular area is the presence of corals. There are obviously huge diversity of tropical fishes, there are planktons, but the corals are one of the most important aspects when it comes to the biodiversity of the Caribbean Sea and the North Brazilian Shelf. Okay, so now this area needs to be protected, this area needs to be conserved, and that is why, in order to have sustainable development for this particular region, that mechanism has been formed. So let us look at some of the key facts. So this OCEM was basically conceived under the 10-year Climb Plus Strategic Action Plan. Again, this is not very important. Okay, endorsed by countries in the wider Caribbean in 2014. Purpose, as we have seen, the purpose is to establish a collaborative governance framework for sustainable management of maritime resources in Caribbean region, including North Brazil Shelf, larger marine ecosystem. Fine. So from this, the question can also be asked that North Brazil Shelf. Okay, so question can be asked in relation to the North Brazilian Shelf or the Caribbean Sea, the bordering countries of Caribbean Sea. Now this North Brazilian Shelf shares the borders with which of these following countries in South America. So in that way also map based question. This OCM will be receiving the funds from Global Environment Facility, GEF. So I hope that you know what is GEF. So Global Environment Facility will be giving the funds to OCM. Anything what when it comes to the conservation, almost everything, the funding mechanism of that traces its route to the Global Environment Facility, and this is one of the most serious concern also. That is why India has raised this concern that when you are coming with another other conservation efforts, you need to have a separate fund for biodiversity conservation. Okay, so under Kunming-Montreal Protocol, remember Kunming-Montreal Protocol, India said this, that if you are going for biodiversity conservation, so have a separate fund. Why we are keeping everything under the ambit of Global Environment Facility? Fine. So when we compare the areas of Caribbean Sea and the North Brazilian Shelf, so we can see that Caribbean Sea is basically a body of water which is adjacent to Atlantic Ocean southeast of Gulf of Mexico. So here you have Caribbean Sea. Okay, if you have to see the bordering countries, so these countries are the bordering countries. I know there are a lot of countries, but just have a look, just read the names of these countries: Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, because we know that which countries are in this particular area. Okay, so obviously the list is given. The deepest point of the Caribbean Sea is Cayman Trench. So we must have heard about Mariana Trench. We must have heard about Java Trench, Sunda Trench. So this is another important trench, that is Cayman Trench. If I ask you that in which area these trenches are formed, so can you tell me that whether they are formed in continental shelf, continental slope, or the ocean bottom floor? In which areas you will find trench? This is a question. Next question. These oceanic trenches are the typical features of which type of plate interaction? Whether the convergent plate boundaries, divergent plate boundaries, or the transcurrent plate boundaries, the slide past plate boundaries. So just think about it. If you know, then just let us know in the comment section. And then this area, Caribbean Sea, is having an interconnected watersheds. So two important watersheds are there. One is the Gulf of Mexico. Second is obviously the Caribbean Sea. So these are the two watersheds in this particular area. Coming to the North Brazil shelf, it refers to a large marine ecosystem line. So remember this name. So 10-year CLME. Okay, so this is large marine ecosystem, Caribbean large marine ecosystem plus strategic action plan located off the northeastern coast of South America, expanding from Caribbean Sea bounded near Venezuela and Parnaíba River. So again, just memorize the name. So they have wide continental shelves, and we all know wide continental shelves again known to have larger biodiversity. Fine. And then they are highly productive region with diverse marine life. Yes, we know this thing. So these are the overviews of these two regions. So question can be asked in relation to this particular initiative, or the question can be asked in relation to the map based thing. Okay, let's move ahead. Next question. So this topic is taken from Down to Earth magazine, and it has said that this particular budget, which has recently been released, this budget is planning to go big for the nuclear energy in India. Now, because we know that the demand for energy in India is continuously growing, and this is the reason when we say that we cannot directly shift from the coal based thermal energy plants to the renewable energy sources. We need some transitioning time. For that transitioning time, we are trying to identify a lot of resources, a lot of sources for energy. So, so yes, I agree that in the context of renewable energy, we are continuously climbing up the ladder. For example, solar energy is continuously increasing, wind power is increasing, biomass is also increasing, maybe at a slower pace, but yes, it is increasing. So, and similarly, the dependence on the fossil fuel is reducing. We have a lot of targets for this also. So where does the nuclear energy comes in? Is it a part of renewable energy, or is it a part of fossil based power source? So again, this is another question for you. Where does the government classify it? So when you will go to the website of Ministry of Power, and you will see that which source is contributing how much. So in the section of renewable energy, just look at it, whether we have nuclear energy over there, or we are just having solar, wind, small hydro, biomass over there. Okay, this will help you to understand, to answer this, that whether do we have this in the renewable basket or not, the nuclear energy in the renewable basket or not. Coming back, so basically the budget is trying to focusing that India will be in future, it will be increasing its investment in the context of nuclear energy, so in order to tap its potential. The Department of Atomic Energy comes up with a lot of benefits also. I hope I have this thing. Yeah. So Department of Atomic Energy says that nuclear energy is the most dense form of energy, and this quality is basically the basic reason that when you will sum down, when you will narrow down all the merits of nuclear energy, you will come down to this basic argument that this is a energy dense source. Why we are saying it? For example, this is a pictographic representation which tells you that one uranium pellet, that is just a 1 inch tall, This small size of uranium pellet, the amount of energy which this small size of uranium pellet can generate, it will be generated by 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas, right? 120 gallons of oil and 1 ton of coal. So understand this thing. Just this much height of uranium pellet, it can generate the energy equivalent to which will be generated by 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas, 120 gallons of oil, and 1 ton of coal. So, from this very thing, can I say that the land footprint of the nuclear energy will be very less, right? Because now it does not require a huge space to be stored. It does not require a large space to be stored because this is the size which can generate the equal amount of energy. So it does not require space. So if it does not require space to be stored, that means, can I say that the storage requirement is also less? The land requirement is also less. If this is true, can I say the maintenance might also be less in this context? In other areas, there might be maintenance, but in this particular aspect, the maintenance will be low. We all know that nuclear energy is basically generated. What is the principle? So we know that presently we are dependent on the fission mechanism, no, not the fusion one, right? So we are dependent on the fission mechanism. So fission mechanism is basically the breaking up of the atoms and the consequent release of energy. So when these things, the fission takes place and the energy is released, that energy is used to generate the turbine to produce the electricity. In this whole process, the greenhouse gas emission is not there. It is absent. So that means what? That means the carbon footprint is also low. The maintenance cost is also low. Land footprint is also low. Storage requirement is also low. Carbon footprint is also low. And the energy output, just this size of piece can generate the equivalent energies of coal, oil, natural gas, right? So that is why Department of Atomic Energy says that there are a lot of myth which surrounds the nuclear power plants. And there is, again, if you narrow down all those things, so the basic myth is of managing the radioactive waste, right? This is the basic thing, that if, let's say, we are not able to manage radioactive waste, or let's say if there is some terrorist attack, or there is some tectonic instability, that is because of any factor, earthquake, etc., if that nuclear power plant is destroyed, then the world earlier also has seen a lot of issues related to the uncontrolled nuclear energy release, whether they were the bomb attacks or they were the disasters in relation to the nuclear power plants in Russia, in Japan, right? So this is the thing. So this is the overview of nuclear energy. But as in the beginning I told you that in this session we are going to have a comparative analysis between the nuclear energy, nuclear plant, thermal plant, and hydro plant. So this is the India's map in which you can see the presence of the nuclear power plants in different areas. Okay, so there are the old sites also which are operating. So this is in operating sites, Narora, then Kakrapara. Okay, then you have Kaiga, you have Tarapur, and then there are few new sites also. For example, Chutka, Mahi Banswara, Bhimpur, etc. Gorakhpur also. Okay, so some of the sites are operating, some of the sites are new. Clear? This is the nuclear plant, the spatial distribution of nuclear plants across India. Now coming back to this particular thing. So when we compare nuclear plant with thermal plant and hydro plant, so this is presented to you in a form of chart. So when we see the location, so nuclear plants are located in the isolated areas away from the population. That is true. Just as a safety measure because of the radioactive waste. So nuclear plants are located in isolated areas. When it comes to thermal plant, they are located where the water and coal can be transported and adequate facilities are there. It might not be in completely isolated area in jungles and forests. When it comes to the hydro plants, again, they are located where large reservoirs or dams can be created. And obviously, that has to be true in the hilly areas only. Okay. So, you require a lot of kinetic energy in water in order to generate the electricity. So, if lot of kinetic energy is required, it can be generated only with the help of the steep gradients of the hills and mountains. Then when we compare the initial cost, the nuclear power plant, another drawback is the highest initial cost is of nuclear power plant. Thermal power plants have somewhat in between, and hydro plants also have the high cost, but the highest goes to the nuclear plant. The high hydro plants, again, we are talking large hydro projects. We are not talking about the run of the river projects. We are talking about the large multi-purpose projects. For example, Bhakra Nangal Dam. Okay, so there you need to construct a lot of reservoir. A huge dam is created. Walls are made. Doors are created. Gateways are created. So this is also capital intensive. The cost of running but in this particular thing nuclear plant is low, and very less amount of fuel is required. That is why the cost of running is low. So when you require a lot of fuel and continuously that fuel is required, so the cost of running increases because a lot of cost will be spent on the transportation. Here there is a different case. Just this size of nuclear pellet can give you a lot of energy. In thermal power plant it is highest. In hydro plants also it is practically nil because the river is draining. You have the fuel. In hydropower plant, what is the fuel? It is water. So it is there. Cost of fuel transportation again is minimum due to small energy required. Here it will be higher. Here again there will be no cost. And when it comes to the environment friendly nature, so this nuclear plant is environment friendly because the greenhouse gases are not released. This one is least friendly. We know the release of pollutants through the thermal power plants. Hydropower plants are also relatively environment friendly, right? Maintenance cost is very high for nuclear plant. For this, it is somewhat between. Hydropower plants, it is low. Okay, so this is a comparative analysis of these three major large plants in India. Right? This was the thing. Okay. Moving towards the next topic. This topic has come in the context of the Delhi elections because they are just scheduled in 2 days, and Yamuna, as usual, is one of the most important and contentious topic when in the context of Delhi elections. Whenever Delhi elections are there, everyone becomes aware about the pollution and everyone is trying to sensitize and generate awareness related to Yamuna pollution. As soon as the election passes in the next 5 years, we do not talk about it, or we talk about the Yamuna pollution when we see the white foams in Yamuna every winters. Okay, so those are the few times when we see the pollution we talk about it, otherwise we forget about it, and that is the major reason that why we are not able to tackle this problem. Fine. So, this topic has been taken in the context of the recent pollutant ammonia and rise and the high levels of ammonia which was present in river Yamuna. So, here we are not talking about the river Yamuna pollution as a whole and its conservation, right? We are talking about the ammonia pollution in river Yamuna. So, if we talk about this thing, so first is that what are the important sources of the ammonia pollution? So industrial effluents are one of the important sources. We know that Delhi is an industrial region, right? So if Delhi is an industrial region, so industrial effluents will obviously be very high, and these industrial effluents increase the level of ammonia in river Yamuna. Ultimately, all the waste, whether it is agricultural, residential, or industrial, ultimately all that waste finds its destination in the nearby river. In Delhi, it is Yamuna, right? Second is the untreated sewage containing organic matter. Now that waste which is having organic matter, whether it is residential or industrial, it will also increase the levels of ammonia in the river. Then agricultural runoff, because we know that we are excessively using these fertilizers, and Delhi is surrounded by agriculturally dense states like Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, western UP portion. So these are agriculturally rich states and lot of fertilizer is used. Ultimately, again, that fertilizer ultimately will find a destination at which point? Obviously, in the form in the river. Either because of excessive irrigation in the field, the fertilizer will be drained from the agricultural field directly to the rivers with that flowing irrigated water, that is the surface component, or it might happen that the groundwater will also take some of the fertilizers along with it, but the groundwater again will be moving in the direction of the slope of that particular region, which ultimately will be draining into the river itself, right? So this is also another source. And this thing, reduced river flow. Now reduced river flow itself is not a direct source, but try to understand it in a context that rivers as well as air, both of these are known to have regenerative capabilities. Okay, so that means in the earlier times it was practiced that when there was a waste, it was thrown to river, because rivers have self cleansing mechanisms, because they are a mobile body. So when the waste is there, so the aquatic animals which are living there, a lot of waste is consumed by them, a lot of organic content is consumed by them, and because of the flow, the air and the river, both of these regenerate themselves. But the thing is that there has to be some carrying capacity, na? You cannot keep on increasing the waste and pouring the waste in the rivers and then expect that the rivers are some like godlike creatures and they have avenger like powers and they can regenerate themselves despite the any levels of waste which is being thrown in the rivers. It cannot happen like that. So this is what exactly is happening. We have breached the carrying capacities of the rivers. Okay, and if the river flow, the water in the river, let's say if it has gone down, so that means the regenerative capability of the river will also go down, right? So river flow is reduced. Why this is reduced? Talk about global warming. We know that glaciers are melting. If glaciers are melting, so that means this supply will be reduced, right? Talk about shifts in the monsoon precipitation. So if there are shifts, so obviously the river regime will be impacted, right? But more than this, think about the human extraction. Again, because we are talking about the agriculture which is surrounding Delhi region, and we know that this region, the Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Western UP section, this particular portion is known to have a high level of groundwater extraction also. So again, what we are reducing the presence of water overall in that particular area, whether it's surface or groundwater. They are a component of one water only. So that is why the river flow has reduced, and this has led to the increased pollution of ammonia levels. The level which is recommended by Bureau of Indian Standards (BIS) for drinking purpose is 0.5 parts per million. But when it was tested in Wazirabad treatment plant, the ammonia levels were 2.3 ppm. So 0.5, 2.3, right? So it is around 6 to 7 times greater than the level which is recommended by BIS. There can be multiple impacts because of the ammonia pollution. The impacts, one is the water supply disruptions. Why? Understand this, that when there is excessive presence of ammonia in the water, that polluted water will obviously go to the treatment plant, and because the pollution levels are higher, so treatment plant will take its time to treat that water, so it will hold the water for a longer period of time. If it is holding a water maybe to treat it only for a longer period of time, then obviously the supply of the treated water is impacted. If it is impacted, then water will not come to the homes of Delhi people. So drinking water, hence it is impacted, right? Second is the health risks. So you can face lot of respiratory issues, skin related issues, eye irritation, neurological issues, effects like headaches, dizziness, confusion. All these health impacts are also there. Then ecosystem degradation. You can see the presence. So are we aware about eutrophication? Eutrophication is basically the aging of water bodies, ponds, lakes, etc. Aging of water bodies. How does this happen? Because of the presence of excessive nutrients in the form of nitrates. So when you have excessive nutrients, it leads to the increase of the life in the oceans. But increase in the, for example, algae, so there will be an algae bloom because you have a lot of nitrogenous components in the water, which will attract algae bloom will take place. This algae bloom will eventually lead to what? So there will, if lot of algae are there, then they will die also. So lot of algae will decompose also. If this is happening, then release of carbon dioxide might be there, lot of acidification issues can be there. And also, because of this presence of large amount of dead and decayed matter in the water body, this will not allow the sunlight penetration to happen easily. Are you getting it? And if now, so the water is acidic, and the water is not allowing the sunlight to penetrate into it, so other species will also die. So that is why the ecological impacts are also very huge. So there are algae bloom, there are depletion in dissolved oxygen content, there is eutrophication. Fine. These are the impacts. In general, if we talk about the challenges in the Yamuna pollution control. So one is the upstream pollution, right? So pollution which is coming from this upstream states, which is obviously beyond Delhi's limit. So this is a reason. One. Second is the sewage treatment capacity. So there was a report by Delhi Jal Board which said that only around 8 out of 40 sewage treatment plants are working, right? So the sewage treatment capacity is also very low. Ineffective regulations, there are a lot of laws, but there is poor enforcement. Industrial discharge are not regulated properly. Infrastructural delays are also there. We are still not able to establish more sewage treatment plants. There are delays in upgrading the pollution related infrastructure, right? Then coordination issues are also there, overlapping roles of different agencies. So we have Central Pollution Control Board, we have Delhi Jal Board also, we have MCD also. So a lot of bodies are there which are looking for this particular issue, right? Just a minute, let me change my battery. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Yeah, so we were discussing that there are a lot of coordinating issues also because a lot of bodies are there, the jurisdictions are overlapping, and then we have limited technological applications also. So they are inadequate to manage these ammonia levels, right? So these are the in general issues which when we talk about the pollution control in river Yamuna, they are the reasons which hinder this particularly. Okay. Moving towards next topic, this topic is from the mains perspective. So here if we see, the topic has come in the context that 8.5% of the targeted households have rooftop solar installations. So there was a very important scheme which was launched by the name Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Yojana, PM Surya Ghar scheme, and its target was to establish rooftop solar plants in 1 crore households, right? So the honorable minister has said in the parliament that the target will be met in next 2 to 3 years. 1 crore households in next 2 to 3 years. What is the present status? 8.5% of the targeted households are having solar rooftops. There was a data which said that out of 20 lakh applications made on Surya Ghar portal, out of 20 lakh applications, only 5 lakh installations have taken place. So this basically gives you a signal that how we are going to meet this particular target in next 2 to 3 years. So well, obviously down the line we will see that whether the government will be able to make it or not. But yeah, so this is the overall context of this particular news. In this scenario, when we see from the UPSC mains perspective, so because we know that at level 1 we can expect the questions related to the solar energy. Okay, so like merits and demerits of solar energy. Level 2 questions can be in GS paper 1 geography especially, that what are the locational factors which influence the establishment of these plants. You cannot establish solar energy plants in every state, in every area, despite having a difference in topography, despite having difference in climate, etc. So it cannot be established everywhere. So what are the favorable factors, right? And the third thing from this is the third dimension which can be is not talking about the solar power as a whole, but talking only about its one particular aspect, that is the rooftop solar installation. So we'll discuss the rooftop solar installation. This is the rooftop solar installation in present scenario, because we have seen that in recent times the government is focusing on this particular aspect. And also when we see that the large scale solar power plants require a lot of land also, which leads to change in land use also. This is relatively a better option with us, right? So we will analyze the rooftop solar installation as a concept. In India, if we see that how the solar sector capacity is distributed in different aspects, so we can see that the largest share is the ground mounted, those solar panels which are mounted on the ground itself. Okay, then we have grid rooftop solar, then we have hybrid projects. So what do we mean by hybrid projects? Hybrid projects are basically, so for example, let's say you are having a land, right? On this land you established the solar panels, you mounted it on the ground, fine. So this was one, this was second, like this you established it on the entire land. Still you have some space which is left between this and this. So why to waste this particular space? Why not to establish a wind energy plant in between these places if it is feasible? So in an area, if you are having more than one type of energy plant, it becomes a hybrid project. That is why it is written that it is basically a combined solar and other energy sources. And then you also have off-grid solar installation, that is independent solar power systems. And this is the rough breakdown of these four aspects of solar energy, right? Now we'll discuss solar rooftop or Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya Yojana, also known as Surya Ghar Yojana. Yeah. So what is it? It is basically the PV panels are established on the top of the building roofs, and they are used to meet the building's energy demand. So their prime purpose is to meet the demand of that particular building. If the power is generated in excess of that demand, then obviously that power can be traded also. It can be sent to the grid, and if there are farmers, those farmers can earn. If there are end consumers, they can earn also, right? So for building energy demand, are batteries for later use or can be exported to the electricity grid. The present status is more than 75% of the rooftop solar installations are either commercial or industrial. Now this is a very important fact. Why this fact is important? Because of the reason that it is telling you that commercial and industrial establishments are more interested in installing rooftop plants rather than the residential or retail consumers. Why? Can you find out some reason? The big one of the demerit is that it is also cost intensive. So when you will apply your basic arithmetics, you will see that in the short run, it is not a cheaper one. The electricity which you are getting is a cheaper one in a short run. In long run, yes, it can be. But when it comes to industries and commercial complexes, so there, because the energy demand is very high and the requirement is very high, it is relatively beneficial. Okay. The RTS numbers in most of the states are dismissal. Even the urbanized and high income Delhi achieved only 20% of the target. India has about 11 gigawatt of installed rooftop solar capacity, and target of installing it is around 40 gigawatt. And as we have now seen that 8.5% of the targeted beneficiaries under Surya Ghar Yojana, they have this solar installation. This is the present status. Coming to the next aspect, what are the challenges? As we have discussed, first one is the high upfront cost. Second, if you are going to establish this on the roof of your building, so there the winds have to be taken into account, the clouds have to be taken into account, the presence of other buildings in vicinity have to be taken into account. All this will lead to the demand of specialized aspects. Specialization and customization has to be there. So specialization and customization will further increase the cost. Then limited rooftop areas. So when we are talking about the urban areas where we are having the vertical apartments. So here a lot of people are living in this horizontal area. Population density is very high, but the presence of the roof area is very small. On the contrary, if the growth is horizontal, like in villages, so here just three people, just three houses are having this much of roof area. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses are having just this much of roof area. So how can it be generated? This is another challenge. Low energy consumption per square feet is also there. So in states like Odisha, Chhattisgarh, where the energy consumption per square feet is relatively low, there the high cost energy source cannot be established. It will not be, it will not fit on the principles of economy. Competition from alternatives. So you have the wind also, you have thermal also, you have hydro also. So there is a competition also. And limited support from discoms is also another challenge, because discoms are under obligation that they will purchase some amount of energy from the coal based thermal power plants. So there is a discourage, they have been reluctant to aid rooftop solar installations as they fear a loss of revenue with the consumers moving to another energy source. Fine. Next aspect is what are the merits. First and the foremost merit is the energy accessibility and inclusivity. In those areas where the grid connection is not possible, we can go for the rooftop solar installation to provide. So that means it is inclusive in nature and accessible also, right? Second is the transmission and distribution losses, as they are very less. So in electricity, we also talk about the huge transmission distribution losses in India. But because this power which is generated on the roof of my house is going to be consumed within my house, so the transmission distance is very low. If it is very low, then transmission and distribution losses will be very low. Then inexpensive backup supply of power is also there, right? And then you have no additional spaces required for installation because you are establishing on the roof only. So these are some of the merits of rooftop solar installation. So what can be a way ahead? The way ahead can be, first, in the context of this particular scheme, establish the fixed timelines of the installation tasks and ensuring the accountability. Second, ramping up the domestic manufacturing facilities for solar cells and modules, because still we are dependent on the other countries. So we need to ramp up our domestic manufacturing capabilities. Awareness campaigns and workshops should be there, and we need to convince the people that in the long run this is going to benefit you, not just in the sense of economy, taking the other social and ecological benefits. So we need to aware people about this particular thing. Next, we have affordable interest rates, because government is providing a lot of subsidy support in this particular aspect. So it has tried to make it affordable, and it has tried to support the consumers for this particular challenge of that is high upfront cost. So it is trying to overcome this challenge. And then provision of the net meters should be there, so that whatever energy is generated in excess of the consumption which is done by the household, if that is to be supplied, so there should be a net metering in order to adjust for the bills. So this is a way ahead for this particular scheme, and these were the dimensions which we talked about this particular aspect. These are the practice questions for you people. So again, try to solve these practice questions. Okay, so you can pause your video, just pause it, try to mark their answers, and in the next slide you can see their answers also. We have discussed all these things. Okay, so in the next slide I'm moving it towards the answers of these questions. Yeah, so these are the questions B, these are the answers B, A and A for these questions. Okay, so that is all from my side. I hope you have enjoyed this session. If yes, then just like the video, and thank you. All the very best.